country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
Okay, firstly, I gotta address apologetics. It doesn't make sense, I'm not sorry, I don't get it. The fact that he was crucified means that we're all indebted. We should demand to have a culture that doesn't soon forget it. Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess it. Christ is king, listen up, get the message. The time is short, the deception is impressive. The church itself is corrupted and wretched. They preach about grace, no righteousness expected. God gaze at the pulpit because the sin is accepted. The devil calls, they don't even try to reject it. They're employed by Satan, they are tax exempted.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell
It's
it.
neither land of the free, nor is it home of the brave. When you got people here killing babies every day, and all the Christians here think that they can get away if they throw a couple bucks into the bucket on Sunday. But I don't think that that's the way it works. He said to seek the kingdom and his righteousness first. But you wanna grab a handbag, a Rolex, and what's worse, you think that you deserve it, but the bubble's about to burst. It's time to rise, sell the cloak for a weapon. Got the sword in my left, in the right, Smith & Wesson. And I don't think it's wise for you to try to be testing. If you become a Goliath, then I'ma teach you a lesson. It's apostasy, and what the cost will be is the people in the church and state accosting me. But I'm speaking honestly, you are not the boss of me, because I only give allegiance to the one true king. And I don't care if we burn down this whole country, cause it's wretched and rusty and rotten, stupid and ugly. And I got no love for churches and preachers set up above me, cause their democracy's about to be replaced with monarchy.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Main Character Podcast, level 85, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. Guys, welcome back. We are, I guess we're just jumping right in. Wednesday, trash day, hump day. We are back, guys, for level 85, as I said, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. And of course, as always, powered by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. Destination Kingdom, amen. All right, let's go. Honk honk. My bus horn's been broken for a couple weeks. I have not gotten around to fixing it. Don't mind me. We'll go right in here and say hi to everybody. It is good to see all of my people here. We are back after what is, I guess, technically 2 weeks. Although we only had 1 week off, it's been 2 weeks since I was here. So I'm obviously incredibly rusty. I forgot how to do everything. I literally don't know how to do anything. And I wrote notes down at the last minute. So I have a lot I need to say. And I'm totally not poised to do it. So we'll see how it goes. We'll just start up here. We'll roll it back, and then we'll catch up like we always do. I see everybody. Obviously, I see Spirit and Truth, Wendy, one of our moderators, and the captain of the Big Blimp and Party Blimp. Yeah. Anyway, just had to do another one of those. I see Hokma, my good friend. We also got Koday in the house. Good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. We also got Giant Tree, my man. Welcome in. We got Mad Pax, we got Joyful One. The gang is all here. Great to see you guys here. All you early birds getting a seat on the bus. Don't forget to grab your Kool-Aid. It's infused with Sprite and other strange things that... That doesn't sound good. Oh, that's good. Good to see you, Amelia. Welcome in. We've also got Pearl. Welcome in, Pearl. Good to see ya. We've also got Lisa Hall, 3572. Honk honk. I love that. I love the E. The additional E is great. Like, E. Is that like the tire screech? Like, E. All right. Hey, it's good to be back, guys. It really is. I hope I don't miss any of you. We got Mika in the house. Good to see you, Mika. Welcome in. We've also got Pam Crane. with that dual goose honk action. Let's go. Honk and honk. They're sitting pleasantly over here on the background. You can't really tell we're doing a blue thing tonight. I didn't really put things together this evening back there. It's all about the heart of what we're going to talk about tonight, I promise. Let's see, who else have we got here on this crazy bus tonight? We've got, I think I said hi to you, Joyful One, but welcome in. Good to have you. Of course, we got Playing Hooky 11. I feel like I wish I could have played hooky today. It's a long day today. Field maintenance days, you know, there's a certain day of the week, day of the month where I really get down there and get all that stuff done. I didn't do any of the, like, major grooming of the field, but I was doing, like, leaf blower, and I was, like, inhale 1,000,000 pounds of dust. It's just it's awesome. It's a beautiful thing. It is great to see a finished product, though, you know, when you take something kind of in disarray and you restore it and bring it back to order. I'll tell you, it's a good feeling. Let me go ahead and grab my igloo. I always stay hydrated. 1/2 gallon. You know, the last time I was here, I started getting sick, like, during the show. And I totally lost my voice. It was like every 5 seconds, I was like, so hopefully that doesn't happen tonight. I have my igloo just in case. Let's see. We'll make sure we get caught up with everybody before we tear off out of the bus station and on to where we're headed this evening. Good to see you, Jenny Layton. Welcome in. It's good to have you. We got Half Truths for CDM, brother. Good to have you here with us tonight, of course. And let's see, we're just about caught up, and that'll give us the opportunity to peel on out of here. We also got Zigzag. Don't think I've seen you in a while, unless you have been here, and I'm just like, I get lost in the weeds once I start vein bulging or whatever. Once I start ranting, there's no coming back. Anyway, looking good. We got, I knew I was going to do that. I saw Jeff Nugent. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. And I also saw Doctor Who up in here. I know I saw him. Good to see you, brother. Doctor Who Manuel, welcome in. Another one of our moderators. Good to have you here with us tonight, brother. And we also got Brother Bruce. Good to see you, Bruce. Welcome in. We've also got Kathy. Hello from Florida. Hello from Washington State. We're a long ways apart, but we're all here together for a night of crazy Kool-Aid and whatever else is going to be included. I feel like we set the bar so high. Like, like every week I'm like trying to figure out how am I going to make a cooler thing than that? Like, I think, I don't know. Once we hit level 100 first prestige, something's going to snap. I don't know what's going to happen then. The good thing about it is I don't take myself too seriously, so it doesn't really matter what happens here. As long as I'm enjoying the night with you guys, that's what this is all about for me. So if you want to hear my 2 cents, it isn't worth much. It's probably not even worth 2 cents. But hey, you know, if you think it is, wink, wink. But first, before we go over there, we've got Precision Rifleman. Good to see you, my man. Glad you made it in. And Kathy Slaw. All right, y'all. Honk honk, first stop, Shilltown, destination Shilltown, occupation, con man. Let's go over to Patreon and say special thanks to all of our wonderful supporters over there on patreon.com/thecultofcon. Thank you guys so much for helping to power this channel and help make this worthwhile to me and to fund everything that we're doing here, between whether it's my ridiculous car project or whether it's computer equipment or whatever it is. You know, you guys have been incredibly generous, and it's been really awesome, and I'm really grateful for all of your support. And of course, thanks to all of you guys for choosing to be here with me on Wednesday night, Wednesday, hump day, trash day. You know, it's like if you're doing that 9 to 5, Monday through Friday grind, this is the halfway point. We're almost there. Eyes on the prize, working for the weekend, you know, that whole thing. So if I can keep the energy flowing, if I can keep it going, I gotta. So that's why I'm here. Thank you guys again for being here, and thank you all again for choosing to support the channel. Now, before we get too far into the goodies, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about. I guess if you're new here, which do new people come here? Like, I don't know if that's a thing, but if you are new here, I want to take a moment to say that this channel is devoted to the kingdom, and although I am an imperfect man and we're all imperfect sinners, we believe that you cannot have the truth without the way, the truth, and the life. And so I think that's the most prioritized thing in the world. If you are a follower of the way, if you build your house on the rock, everything else is better off in your life, whether it's something that you're receiving or something that you're creating. It's all going to be better if you do it through the Lord's kingdom. Amen. Destination Kingdom. Amen. So we are catching back here after a week off. Again, 1 week off is 2 weeks of actual time. That's pretty crazy. I don't know if I could do that again. But we were knuckling down. We were getting a lot done. I feel really good about the progress that we're making on the new big project, which, as you guys know, Gog Magog, the end of the little season, the very first feature-length presentation from the Cult of Khan. I'm very excited to share that with you guys. More than excited. It's kind of opening the door to a ton of new things that are going to be going on with the channel, with the future of the movement, CDM, and with everything else that's going on. I'm just very excited to share that with you guys, and I'm sure it'll be a very interesting conversation for all of us to have, at the aftermath of all that. So we'll see how that goes. I'm very excited, of course, to share that with you guys. Obviously, recent events have been kind of crazy. I take a week off and things immediately deteriorate. In World War III, I was like, oh, shoot, I probably shouldn't have taken the day off. But as you guys know, the whole conflict is getting kind of weird. Recent events are kind of weird. We brushed over this stuff a little bit during last week's Sunday service. We talked a little bit about that. And it's actually interesting enough, the week before, we actually revisited another episode, which was the beginning of Sunday service season 2, and we actually were talking about this conflict in its infant stages, like what was leading up to what became the current involvement, which is just crazy. It's crazy to see how, God is working with us through all the times and seasons, and we end up back in another season of conflict and difficulty, and lo and behold, there are lessons there for us too from the Lord, and it's just an incredible reality. But yeah, so we're back. We're back from that hiatus, which was just really, like I said, chance to get knuckled down and get some stuff done on the new piece, and to make some progress there. And then obviously, like I said, things got a little crazy, and I kind of gave, I guess you could say, the mild take during Sunday service, because obviously that's a very reverent time. We're trying to focus on the Word and have a good Christian fellowship there in that environment. So obviously, like, I'm not gonna go on like the the podium rant during the thing. So obviously we're a little more free on this show to kind of say whatever I want about that, and I will give a little bit more about that. We also talked about replacement theology. That was this last Sunday, and really it was kind of wild, because we're, I guess, coming to the realization that a crazy racial religious supremacy group is like seizing control of the world and propagating all kinds of ideas that it's such a complicated lie, because you're talking about something they just made up that now they're acting like has always been a thing. It's very creepy and crazy when people do that. Like the term replacement theology is just a modern term for Christianity. I mean, that's literally what it is. And I don't know, I wasn't gonna necessarily get into it, but let's talk about it just a little bit, since I do have the freedom to say what I really want to say on Main Character Show. Replacement theology, right? So I have heard this whispered before, but where I really heard this lately was it's like inside the Trump's White House administration and inside the kind of like modern Zionist evangelical agenda, which is basically to say, right, we know from biblical prophecy that Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of the law, and so he is the way, the truth, the life, the Son of God. We all understand that as Christians, but there are people that reject Jesus Christ, and so they, not believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, wholly reject everything that has to do with his fulfillment, his salvation, and basically his kingdom. And so because of that, they have to inherit their own kingdom that they've created. So this created satanic kingdom is referred to by Christ in the Bible multiple times as the synagogue of Satan, and this is effectively a counterfeit chosen people. They are the Jews who call themselves Jews but are not Jews. And this is discussed in the Bible. It's actually compelling to realize that when we look at the essentially like an Eastern European group that has inserted themselves into the timeline of history as God's chosen people when they are not. and then for it to be basically biblical prophecy realized that these people who call themselves God's chosen people are actively pursuing God's actual chosen people. And the irony is palpable. And it's a very incredible geopolitical thing that you can see throughout the course of modern history with like the Bolshevik Revolution, the First and Second Great War, the establishment of the nation state of Israel, and everything going on in that conflict in that region, which we can unpack a little bit more as well, since we're going to be over there at some point. We're all getting drafted for World War III. Not really, but I always say, like, we talk about things on this channel you're not supposed to talk about, and I think this is one of those subjects that's unfortunately still something you're not allowed to talk about, although you've seen a lot of people discussing these geopolitical circumstances more than ever lately. That's true. But really what I'm trying to say is just that this group has created effectively what they would consider like a legal or some kind of an argument against Christianity, which the central belief of Christianity being that Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of the law and that he is the way to salvation, to the kingdom and all this. And so ever since the inception of Christianity in what secular history can call 2,000 years ago, it was initially that very belief that those who are in Christ are truly Abraham's seed and heirs to the promise, as it speaks about in Galatians chapter 3. And what we're talking about is essentially a teaching that there is no free nor slave nor Jew nor Greek nor male nor female, and that Jesus' kingdom is for everyone. That is the truth about what makes Jesus' kingdom so real, is that God's chosen people are a people who choose him, not that they are born with some inherent birthright that makes them better than you and above you and that authorizes them to enslave you and torture you and kill you, which is what they do. And I think that's beyond a debate at this point. I don't think there's anyone in the world who could stand up to me in a debate about how these people have tortured and killed everybody else in the name of their racial religious supremacy organization. The kind of thing that if any other group did, they would be vilified as the worst villains in history, right? You look at World War II as the perfect example. The National Socialists were, as far as I can remember, my whole life, I've been taught are the worst, most evil people in the world, and only until 30 years, only in 2020 something, did people realize, wow, they lied about that too. So obviously we're in really deep, it's a significant problem. And again, these are the people who are propagating the idea of what they call replacement theology, which is basically their way of saying that people who believe they can become God's chosen people or that they are God's chosen people through Jesus Christ are frauds and liars, and that the only real chosen people of God are people who are born of this heritage. And of course, there's so much to unpack about how they won't let you test them to find out if they are of that heritage, because you'll find out, unfortunately, that they're not of the heritage they say they even are. Wow, believe it or not. Crazy. So without getting too far into the conspiracy against humanity at the behest of the multi-generational satanic Talmudic death cult, of which there very much is one, let's also talk about just the simple concept of this, right? They are basically saying they're the chosen people and you are not. Well, we know that's not true because that is a racist, xenophobic, it is a supremacist faction, and that's not the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is a diverse and beautiful place. Let's remember that God made man in his various forms, male and female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, whatever. God made everybody, and he knows that out of all these races of people, out of all these walks of lives, all these nationalities and languages, there are going to be people that choose him. And it's not that the people choose him and that's what makes them part of his fold. The people choose him because they are part of his fold. You see, the Bible is very clear that Jesus calls you unto himself. Nobody makes the decision to become a member of the kingdom. It's this complicated, almost predestiny kind of reality where if you come to realize that Jesus is the Son of God and King of Kings, and you believe that and you pledge allegiance to him, the reason you do that is because you are of his sheep. You didn't become his sheep when you found him. He knew you before the foundations of the earth. And that reality is crazy because that tells you the facts are that God's chosen people are not comprised of a race or of a nose size or the size of your hat, but it really is about your heart and who you really belong to, your family in the cosmos. And that is compelling and damning to this, any sort of a racist, ethno-state, any kind of a supremacist faction of any race or religion is completely the antithesis of Christ's actual message. You don't get to be some kind of like an evil against like a supremacist. It literally is. If you're not one of us, you are goy, you are a slave. Like that. That's worse than actual racism. At least regular racists are usually kind of dumb. They're usually kind of driven by like ignorance. These people know better and they're just evil. And that is dark. So anyway, the true followers of Christ are the true Israel. The nation of Israel is Christ's people, and they are every race, creed, language, age, gender. Okay, that's the reality. Kingdom is full of all these good people, and God made a wonderful, diverse group of people and animals because he's a creator, he's an artist, he's a genius. What point would there be in everyone being a monolith? He's better than that. The kingdom is bigger and better than these foolish ideas of man, okay? We know that. And so there's a lot to unpack still about the issues with Israel, but that's fine. So we'll move on before we get too far into it. Of course, as you know, as I kind of mentioned and did talk about in Sunday service, we're now at war, I guess, depending on who you ask, a military conflict operation with a major nation. I don't think that most people know that Iran is a nation of 93 million people, and they exist in a region that was essentially unconquerable for thousands of years. And although the weapon systems have changed, I almost think that would justify the argument being even more so, because you look at Alexander the Great and his army of professionals having the ability to conquer Persia when much of their army is like slaves and conscripts. It's like, look, if you take a man who's skilled 10 years with a sword and throw him against another guy who has no skill with a sword, it's completely unmatched. A slave or a conscript stands no chance against a faction of individuals who are like trained, seasoned veteran fighters. But the modern day has really changed that paradigm, because an effectively useless combatant can now pilot a drone or fire a rifle with very little training and do such destruction without having to truly be skilled. And so you can have a guy who has been in the military for 25 years, he's the ultimate gung-ho Navy SEAL, and if he's shot with a rifle by a village idiot, he still gets destroyed by it. And so conflict has gotten even more difficult. When we look at this Middle East slog of the last 30 years, the reason it was so hard is because we didn't just need to isolate some bandits in the mountain to make sure they didn't get any food to their cave. We're dealing with advanced logistics and weapon systems in the modern age that make it so difficult that a normal guy, it always just comes down to one guy with a gun, and there's a guy with a gun in a village, and he springs up and opens fire on the fob, and so the conflict goes on, because you can never get to the end of it as long as anybody doesn't like you and raises a weapon. You will never be able to exterminate an idea. And so that's the reality of this conflict in the Middle East. And when you extend it to this extent, right, to where we're now going to war with a nation of 93 million people, obviously there's a conspiratorial angle and much to unpack about the logistics of all that. But what we're looking at on the surface is inevitably a drawn-out, long-term conflict in which many people will die and millions of dollars will be wasted. And that is, of course, ridiculous. And happening on behalf of Israel. I mean, for lack of a better way to describe it, you know, and much of this has come out, so I'm probably allowed to say it. I'm just reporting what I've heard. This isn't what's real. It's just what the internet all uniformly says. I mean, maybe not uniformly, but I think pretty well uniformly. And so what's happening is, you know, as you know, it's Operation, actually you can't say this, but I'll say it anyway, Operation Epstein Fury or Operation AIPAC Fury. And again, you're not allowed to say that now. Like, I've seen people who were saying it who got in trouble and are not saying that now. So they're really trying to crack down on it, which tells you something. But we know that Jeffrey Epstein represents a political blackmail operation. He's the head of this operation, of which there's probably many. If there's one, there's more than one, okay? And I think if they give you one, it's because the other ones are far more sophisticated even. But you see, you have frat boy Epstein. They're willing to let you know about that one because they don't want you to know about industrialized Epstein. They don't want you to know about factory Epstein. Anyway, so that we know that Epstein represents political blackmail, and the released Epstein files have revealed the Epstein ties to the nation of Israel. So we know that much of the U.S. government is openly loyal to Israel and likely compromised by Israel through Epstein files or similar, possibly yet unknown operations. And so because of this, again, Israel represents this racial and religious supremacy faction bent on fulfilling this insane but openly stated plan to create a larger ethno-state called Greater Israel. And this is a task which requires the seizure of territory from foreign nations, which means the removal or genocide of the local populations, something which has been repeatedly proven to be within the scope of what they are willing and capable of doing, as we have witnessed in locations such as Gaza, Egypt, Lebanon, Yemen, Oman, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and others, as I'm sure I have forgotten them on this list. So the USA is a puppet state of the nation of Israel, and that is why this war is happening. To distract from Epstein, to construct the greater Israel territory, and because it would alter the world economy. And you can say a lot about what that means. Like, is it time for America to fall into the annals of the past and for Israel to reign solely as the world's supremacy country? They've been stating this in the open for months, probably years now, that what they want to do is create a global hegemony where Israel is the world reserve currency faction, the finance capital of the world, etc. So everything that makes America have dominance over the rest of the world, the consumer base and the economic stronghold, as well as like militaristic stronghold, that would require America to be drugged down so that Israel can rise up. And that is, I think, probably our current situation. The best example right now in geopolitics of how the crab mentality is taking place, right? Because Israel is every day becoming more and more disliked. You know, I was a conservative kid raised with conservative beliefs, and I always just automatically supported Israel because that's kind of the Judeo-Christian way, right? Is to support Israel, our greatest ally, of course. And the unfortunate truth about that is because you blindly follow that message your whole life, you don't realize how wicked that nation really is. And so you've blindly supported it for so long. But for someone to have done that, myself and effectively most others, I can't speak for everybody, but everyone had a period of time in their life where they were unaware of how bad things were, how deeply controlled the geopolitical theater was. And eventually you would come free of something like that, and then you have to form a new opinion. And obviously when I realized how bad everything was over there, I formed a new opinion about these places and these people. But prior to that, I didn't know. And I think that the number one sign of the times is the fact that so many people now are aware of the facts about this that they just simply didn't know before. And it isn't to say that people are evil or that they're stupid. It just wasn't something that you could talk about. And now, of course, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about why. But nevertheless, we're now being allowed to brush over these subjects. And you have to be careful what you say. Like, I was talking in a live stream chat, I think it was Owen Schroyer, and I was trying to type, "We have to defeat Israel." You can't say that. You cannot type, "We have to defeat Israel." At least I can't. It just will not appear in the chat. Well, why? Why can't you type that? You know what I mean? So if we're worried about their control scheme being real or not, it's certainly there. The censorious regime is real. And it's crazy. So let's go ahead and let's shift gears for a second, and let's look at our thumbnail for tonight. So this is level 85, crab mentality. So there's actually a purpose for this. It has a meaning, and I'll explain it. But as you can see, that's me on the big shiny crab, and we're inside the claw machine. I thought a claw machine called crab mentality would be good. So this is kind of a combination of AI and other things, with a little bit of handiwork from myself. But basically, it's just we got a bunch of crabs, Pokemon, Mr. Krabs, Sebastian, etc. You know what I mean? We're trying to fill the roster here. And there's a thing about it, and I'll explain it. So crab mentality is a phenomenon of people resisting change. And it isn't limited to just resisting change or growth, for that matter. But it actually goes further, because crab mentality is not just about resisting growth and change in your own life. It's about dragging others down with you. You know, like if you're a big loser and all you do is waste all your time, and then you start sucking the energy off of other people because you're not producing any energy, you're not going anywhere, and so then you're like, you need somebody else to give you money so you can get more cigarettes or whatever it is, because you're a bum and you're not a self-starter, you're not making anything, so you don't have money for cigarettes, but you are consuming, right? Like, I just ask me how I know. Like, I remember being like a broke teenager, and I remember being a loser and among losers who aren't doing anything, who are resisting change and growth. Okay, you can individually self-sabotage. That's a thing. But crab mentality is worse than that. Crab mentality is about trying to make sure that other people don't succeed because of what it does to you, because it makes you jealous, or because it makes you lesser, or because it shines a light on how lazy and useless you are when other people are producing. And the question, well, why can't you do even half of that or any of it? How come you do nothing when these other people are doing great? And that's, I think, central to the purpose that Christ had in doing miracles, right? Because he wanted to expose people to a different way of being, where you have all these people who get no results, and then you all of a sudden have a guy who does get results, and that contrast means something for people in their mind. So crab mentality, again, it's about dragging other people down. It's about not being willing to change yourself and doing everything it takes to stay stuck in the mire. Whatever it is that you're stuck in, you don't want to change. You don't want other people to change because it might draw you in a direction of change, whether you're afraid of it, whether you're stupid, whether you're ignorant. This universal force of change, you think that you somehow have the capacity to stop it, and that is not uncommon. It's very common for people, for whatever reason, like I said, where they're ignorant, or we're actually stupid, or we're way too bold, or narcissistic, whatever the reason is. And you just think, well, if I do it, it'll be different. Like when I do it, the rules aren't the same for me because I'm the main character. But let's talk about it, right? Deadliest catch, and despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. You know what I mean? The world is a vampire. Anyway, sorry about that. So the deadliest catch, right? They're out there trying to catch crabs in the Bering Strait, right? And the main point is, let's try to catch some crabs, mate, And so the crab pot comes up on the boat, and this is a basically universal. This is where the whole metaphor comes from, right? You pull up the crab pot, and in the pot are a bunch of crabs. And in the mouth of the pot, are crabs who are like halfway in and not even all the way in the pot. You see it every time. Go watch the show. There's crabs halfway out of the pot. And if you look close, my friend, this is known. If you look close, there are other crabs grabbing those crabs, preventing them from getting out of the cage. This is crazy. You just totally look it up. So what happens is, for whatever reason, they're scared. They're trying to get out. They're whatever. They're animals. They're not very smart. And they know they're in the cage, and they're looking for the exit. And there's a crab in the exit, in the mouth, in the opening, and crabs are grabbing him, trying to either hitch a ride out, trying to pull him down so they can get up. These different crabs are just doing this behavioral survival technique, right? They're afraid, they're confused, they're ignorant, they're not very smart, and so they're trying to prevent change. They're like, I don't like this. You're staying in here with me. They're like trying to mitigate what's happening. But they do that in the form of trying to drag down people who are trying to make a break for it, people who are trying to change the status quo. We're all in the cage, and I'm halfway in the cage, and I don't want to be in the cage, and I'm trying to leave the cage, and people in the cage are trying to grab my legs and drag me back in here and drag me down to hell with them. Is that not the iconic? That's the case of the world, right? Everyone around you, the worst advice is everyone's advice. Oh, you gotta be your own, do this, like leave your husband or whatever. Like, there's constantly the worst advice you've ever heard gyrating around on the internet. Honey, if you can't make six figures, you a loser. Oh, you a stay-at-home wife? You're a loser. You should be on OnlyFans. Like, everyone's advice is so bad. It's crab mentality. They want you to screw up because they screw up, and they don't want to be the only ones screwing up. Misery loves company. Crab mentality. And so that's where the metaphor comes from. Let's talk about it in real life. The status quo, right? What is the status quo? The status quo is what is normal. The authorities, the ruling class, the powers that be, the government, whatever, the culture has established what is considered normal. And because normal is their establishment, it can change. And I don't necessarily mean they as in the ambiguous they, the royal they, or whatever, the deep state, right? I just mean culturally, what the majority of people like and think and do and consider normal is what is normal. And again, that can change. That can change if a majority of people think something is different. They change the way they think. They perhaps even repent, believe it or not. So what is that then? So we talked about in recent weeks the birth of the income tax in the United States. And we talked about how this incremental, this what we call the slippery slope, where they brought it in gently and slowly worked it in until it was a ramp sliding down the hill and you couldn't stop it. You couldn't change it now. Now this is the new normal. You're down the ravine, you're down the slide, and there's no climbing back up. It's too slick. And that's the reason they do it that way, because they want change, and they want the change to happen. They want it to go through. They want you to ride with it. And change is difficult. People are prone to habits. And I'm probably the greatest example of that of all time. I am a creature of habit. I'll like eat the same thing every day if I could. And I'd just do the same thing all the time. Like, I don't want to have to deal with more problems and more like hard. I already have enough on my plate. Oh, something changes? Now I have to reconsider things. Imagine that. I understand it. I understand the drive of cognitive dissonance, where on like a big level, you don't want to experience change in how you think, change in how you live. And I understand on like a microcosm where it's like, change, or dang it, now that's a different color. So whenever we're doing this, I have to remember that it's blue now instead of green. And so because I got used to them being green and now they're blue. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is it's just the way it is. And change is inevitable. Change is unstoppable. For everything there is a time. For everything there's a season. The Bible tells us this. We know it's true. And so you can't stop change. You can't fight change. Change is a-coming. There's a change a-coming. Let it start in me. Amen. Anyway, so we know this is happening. And so people resist it, and it's known that people resist it. So when the goal is to make change happen, they do it very carefully. They do it very selectively. But let's just say we look at where we are now, the status quo of today. The idea of income tax now is perfectly normal. We all just pay it. We let them take it. I don't even make that much money, and they take quite a bit from me, and I'm not even in a state with income tax yet. We'll wait and see how long that lasts for. But let's just say they're taking all your money without your consent, but it doesn't matter because now that's normal. That's the status quo. Well, it's just the way things are, and you can't change it, my friend. At least that's what some people say. The long story short is it didn't used to be that way, so obviously it can change. It didn't used to be that way. Now it is that way. It could not be that way again, okay? So when people are naysayers, they're doing the crab mentality. They're ignorant, they're stupid, they're scared, they're lacking information, whatever the reason may be. If you don't know that income tax didn't used to exist, you might just say, that's just the way things are. You can't change the world. But it's like, in 1913, that wasn't the way things were, and they changed the world. So you're wrong. Learn information and then start reevaluating your decision-making process, and then you won't make those decisions and be a crab anymore. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, income tax, which sucks, by the way. I'm sure you can all agree with that. It used to be impossible to imagine. It was outlandish. And then, as we discussed, 1945, 44, the height of World War II in America, anyway, up to 94%. People were being taxed 94% of their income to pay for the war. Some people, not everyone, but the top marginal payers of tax paid 94%. That's so crazy. That's the most unconstitutional thing I've ever heard. Not that the Constitution's anything but an asswipe. I keep saying that. I'm sorry. It's a beautiful asswipe. It's some of that expensive toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like 4-ply, whatever. I don't know what it is. Charmin or something. The point I'm trying to make is that what is normal can and will be changed. That is part of the natural progression of the world that we live in. So let's think about it. There's, I think they say, an estimated 2.1 billion Christians in the world. But Christianity is not the status quo, right? We know that. We know that Christianity it's not the rule, it's the exception. If we look at our world today, what we actually have is this, how do I put it? It's the degenerate, satanic, scientism-driven, frankly, Talmudic, Jewish, and unhinged world order of today. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. I don't know. But that's the norm right now. More war, this time Iran. No justice for the perpetrators or for the victims of the Epstein organization, and no further investigation to determine if there are other islands like this in operation, if there are other even more sinister factories and stuff that are on the same wavelength that we don't even know about. Everyone knows Epstein. How do we know he wasn't the distraction for 12 other factories? You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to be that, like, doomsayer, and I'm really not trying to be. I just need people to be adults, be mature. I always am calling for people to be grown up about situations. You know, And so we have to be willing to face reality, even if it sucks. The truth sometimes sucks. That's what adults do. They handle it. They handle their business. But anyway, so this rotten culture, that's the culture that leads. The pedophiles get away with it. Anything you say is anti-Semitic. You know what I mean? Like, that's the culture today. It sucks. Pay 90% in taxes, you goy slave. Eat your goy slop. That's the status quo. So, like, don't let me be the first person to tell you. I'm sure I'm not. We need to change. Something's got to change because this ain't working, right? I'll be the first one to say it, the last one to say it. I don't know. I will join the crowd saying it. I don't need to be given a title for saying what we all know is true at this point. So regardless, we need to change. We have a world of turmoil and we need some resolution in that. And I think that's obvious. But believe it or not, there are actually people who don't want to change. There are actually people who see things the way they are, and for whatever reason, whether they're stupid or ignorant or angry or sad or hurt or whatever, dude. People have their reasons. I can't tell you why. Everyone's got their own. But what I think is obvious is that people are trying to resist change because they are afraid of what change will bring. And it's interesting because there are examples in history where change was brought and people wanted it. And there's more to say about that. We'll talk more about that. But let's talk about change that people don't want, which is how we got to where we are now. All these things that have been imposed upon us culturally have happened slowly over time through the process of the slippery slope, which we've discussed. Now we have income tax, which used to be inconceivable, and now it's normal. And now we have like legalized internet prostitution, which was at one time totally inconceivable, but is now normal. And so the continued degeneration and the application of scientism, non-scientific religion, you know, the culture of today is atheistic scientism. It's not Christianity, even though there's 2 billion Christians in the world. And what I'm getting at is we both need change and have the means to generate it. That is the reality. That is in the same way that they wanted income tax and they had the means to apply it. They used a process and brought it to fruition, and now it's here. That's the world we live in now. We as Christians need to realize that this world is not Christian. It is not righteous. It is not good. It's not holy. People are not prospering here. It is ugly, it is bad, etc., etc. Okay, I'm not trying to beat the dead horse forever about that, but the fact is we know it needs to change, and we have the power to change it. That is the bottom line of everything I believe in this day and age, because I don't think we've been given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and authority and a love and a purpose, right, with this kingdom that is bigger than all of us, that is for the good of all people. Okay, so that drives me to say I'm not good with this. I believe change can come and will come. And of course it will come because it is prophesied. The Bible tells us that the day comes when the world changes, when the old order of things passes away and we enter into a new kingdom, a new heaven, a new earth. And that to me is destination kingdom, first of all, right? Destination kingdom, but it's also reality that we're going to at some point leave this version of the status quo behind and enter into a new world resolution, a new way of living for all people. That's the reality. So it's coming. Today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, just mark on your calendar somewhere, Destination Kingdom, because that is the future of the world. No matter what they play on TV about, oh, World War III this, oh, you're under a Talmudic cult and can't resist, everything you say is anti-Semitic, prepare to be killed by your phone. You know, it's like, I don't listen to that stuff, man, because that is not who we are. The people who are afraid of this stuff are people that are perishing because they don't know the difference. They don't know that you can actually live for a higher cause, to which if your life on earth is taken, you're even more successful in that cause. Think about how empowering that is. If they kill you and you're a representative of the kingdom, in the kingdom, you did even better. Wow, well done, my good and faithful servant. You actually died for the kingdom. It's talked about. It's a known thing. I'm not saying go martyr yourself. I'm just saying keep in mind that the worst thing they can do to you is kill you and elevate you if your purpose is true and pure. That's kind of cool. You can't say that about them. If they die, they go to hell, and they know it. They're evil. They know they go to be with their father, the devil, and so they're on a hell-bent rampage because, like, who's going to stop them? Me and you? That's what they're asking. Who's going to stop us? These guys? Sorry. Anyway, the point is that people don't want change. They're hypnotized. You know, they're under the spell, whether it's some illusory version of reality that they live in, or whether they're deeply traumatized and confused about who God is and what Jesus wants for the world, or who Jesus is. There's so much of this that people are so misconstrued about. Of course, they make the wrong choice. Of course, they don't know. It's that same formula. They're either ignorant, they're either angry, they're stupid, they're whatever. What's missing is the truth. The people don't have the way, the truth, and the life in their life. And so they don't have those elements. It's like, seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and everything else shall be added unto you. But if you don't have his kingdom or know of his righteousness, truly, I'm not talking about churchy, I'm talking about truth. If you don't have it, you're still lost. And that is, I think, the most tragic part about this, is that there are people trying to prevent people from finding that. And even it goes all the way back into the most ancient of times. There's always going to be that too. I mean, that's just what it is. People are always going to try to stop this universal force of change. This, and when I say universal, I don't mean like cosmic, like there's no God. I'm saying like it's as big as it gets. It's part of the story. You don't have the old order passing away in the new heaven and new earth without change. So what, are you just going to stand up and say, nope, not me? Come on. And whether you're some kind of an atheist or whether you're a believer in God, you can't stop it. You're going to get old. And people do. They try to stop aging, like buying all these creams and supplements, trying to like not look old. It's like, what are you going to do? There's that one guy, you guys have probably seen him, he's like creepy. He's like in his late 40s now, I think. And he's all like, his face is like he's like spent $3 million to preserve himself, and every moment of his life is like some sort of a ritual. He gets out of a frozen chamber, and then he goes into like some sort of cucumber eyeball mask, and then once he gets off that, then he's hooked to a machine, and then he's like he's just so dumb. Every second of his life wasted trying to preserve it. Every cent he ever made wasted trying to keep hold of it. It's the most embarrassing case of all time. It's literally like you're being drugged to hell by your carnal needs. And you're just going to waste your money, still get old, still die, and then go to hell instead of the kingdom. What an idiot. I'm sorry, but these are the people lauded as the most successful and intelligent people who waste their whole life and then die and go to hell. I'm sorry, but I'm not in cohesion with that. That version of reality doesn't work with me. Okay? So we're trying to get back to what I'm saying here. People are going to try to prevent others from succeeding. The example that came to mind was the Tanya Harding situation, where it's all, I can't rise on my own, so I have to drag you down so I can lift myself up. And that is so common. That is the behavior of desperate, cowards, fools, bullies. The worst people in the world are the kind of people who don't have the integrity or the intellect or the skill or even the desire and drive. Because I've seen people who didn't have a lot of talent who meant it and did good. So if you're just, there's something fundamentally wrong with you, you're simultaneously unmotivated, you're lazy, you have no skill, you have nothing to offer the world, you can't even fathom like trying. Okay, if you're that bad, and so your result is, well, I can't be allowed to feel bad for everything that I do, everything that I caused. I couldn't possibly be my fault. Everyone else is responsible for it. I'm going to tear everyone else down so that I don't feel so bad about myself, even though it's my fault that I suck. That's the actual quintessential like narcissist or bully, coward, weak person, and that's not cohesive with what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Like, it's just not. If you're a Christian, you're not weak and scared and a bully and a coward. Like, you have no reason to want to drag other people down with you. And you should be perfectly content saying, I know who Jesus is. My relationship with him is sound, and that's all I can truly be responsible for. As I mentioned in the first place, we remember this and we know this, but Jesus calls his sheep unto himself. As much as we want to be a vessel of his kingdom, we hope that through our work and time in the world that somebody else might learn the things we might have taken all life to realize they might learn soon through the time and work we do. We want people to know the kingdom. We want people to be saved, but we save no one. We don't evangelize people unto Christ. They come to Christ because he called them, and that's the reality. So what happens is people get so caught up in the trivial need to evangelize, hoping that that's the mission God sent them for, that they miss out on all the other things God wanted you to do in your life. You're so bent on being churchy that you miss what it means to be a kingdom citizen. That's a tragedy in and of itself. And then again, this is an opportunity for people to crab mentality you, because when you're in the church and you have this doctrine, these dogma, this stuff causes people to resist change. They've been programmed all their life. You know, there's this guy, he's called Eli Yoder. He's an Amish guy, and he escaped the Amish community during Rumspringa, never went back. And he said that there were so many things that he learned by just reading his Bible for the first time. Just reading it himself and what it really said, because there were so many things ingrained in his Amish traditions that were just made up. They weren't biblical. But because he had never sought change, and the idea of seeking change was frowned upon. It was a apostate thing to do, to question the teachings of the elite pastors or whatever. And so you stay trapped in your religion forever. And when he got the Bible and really read it, he saw all the fallacy of everything they were teaching, because he had the truth now, and he could make the comparison. He could make the decision for himself. And those Amish, I guarantee you, his family, his friends, they all begged him to come back. You know, they were like, come back and just be Amish. Just forget everything you heard. Just come back into the sheep pen, you know? Those crabs were trying to drag him back down to the Amish crab pot. Like, no thanks. I understand the Amish crab pot is of exceeding quality. The construction on it is exquisite. However, I'm not trying to die and become dinner. Okay? So let it go. So these are crabs. Crab mentality. All right? So when I'm trying to understand this and understand it and analyze it in the best possible way, I look at biblical examples, because I think the Bible, although it's not perfect, right? The Bible is full of truth, but not all truth possible is in the Bible. Like, it doesn't tell you how to tie your shoes anywhere in there. And yet somehow we do it. So God doesn't need pages to guide you, but let's understand the Bible is really solid, okay? Despite its iniquity, like all of us, it's still really solid. There's a lot of good truth in there. And let's look at then the book of Genesis, chapter 37. This is, I think, one of my favorite examples of crab mentality in the Bible. So check it out. This is Joseph dreams of greatness. Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not peaceably speak to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So then he said to them, please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, look, I've dreamed another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me. So he told it to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come down to bow to you or bow down to the earth before you? And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So he said to him, here I am. Then he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what are you seeking? So he said, I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks. And the man said, they have departed from here, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, look, this dreamer is coming. Come, therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So it came to pass when Joseph had come to his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal. They lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry them down out of Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. Then Midianite traders passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. And he returned to his brothers and said, "The lad is no more, and I, where shall I go?" So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "We have found this. Do you know whether it's your son's tunic or not?" And he recognized it and said, "It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, "For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Anyway, it goes on to say about selling to Egypt. And if you guys know the story, heavy stuff. If you guys know the story about Joseph, you know he goes on to fulfill some amazing stuff. And really, those dreams of visions that the Lord had given to him were prophetic. And they were about a better time that was coming, a change that was coming. You know, it wasn't going to be the same old farmer life that they were living. And we know there was this famine in Egypt, and because of Joseph being there, because of the dream interpretations that God had given him, he saved not only all of Egypt, but his whole family. And there is a happy ending in this. And so this is, you know, an example of crab mentality where his brothers, you know, they couldn't see what all this really meant. They didn't understand what exactly God was trying to do here, nor did they really care that much. They were just angry about the fact that their brother, their young brother, who their dad had with his wife in old age, the miracle child, you know, they were jealous of him, they were angry, and they, for whatever reason, couldn't see the benefit, right? They couldn't see the end of the road and realize that Joseph would one day become king of all of Egypt and save the whole world as they knew it. And so they were mad and they were jealous. They didn't understand. They were stupid. They were ignorant. They were angry. There were all these reasons that people do this. They did it, and they decided to sell their brother into slavery because they thought that would fix their problems. They thought, if we just get rid of this guy, let's drag him down so that he doesn't make the rest of us look bad. Let's drag him down so that he can't rise above us. That was their mentality. And of course, God had a plan that was bigger than them. God knew what they would do. God saw the end and orchestrated a victorious salvation for the people of Israel. And more tribulation down the road if we know about the Exodus in the coming time. So, I mean, obviously, there's always something going on. The Lord's always working. And that is, I think, an example that despite the outcome being good in the long run, it doesn't change the fact that in that circumstance, these people were crabs. Joseph's brothers were crab mentality, man. They wanted to make sure he didn't rise to become king of anything if it meant king over me. Even if that means killing him, they thought. Or if that meant selling him into slavery with no idea what would become of him in the future or whether he'd be killed as a slave. You know, and that's dark. Major crab mentality if you're willing to kill people. And I think that there's another example that I would talk about more, but we do have to we have to make this happen tonight. So I could talk about this forever. But let's just talk about like the next, I think, not lesser, but just equally prolific example that comes to my mind, which is actually found in a couple of places in the Bible. But we're looking at Matthew chapter 27, I believe. We'll start here in verse 11. So, as you guys know, the Pharisees, the synagogue of Satan is out to get Jesus. They don't like him. He is on the cusp of major change. He's talking about his kingdom is not of this world, the imminence of his coming kingdom. He is the fulfillment of all the prophecy, and everyone knows it, even the lawyers, the scribes, the Pharisees and Sadducees. These people knew what was going on, and they didn't want their power structure to change or go away. They cared less about the well-being of their people, about healing and order and righteousness, what the kingdom of heaven would offer the earth. They cared more about their power structure than they did about that. And so when Jesus came threatening their power structure, they didn't consider they were ignorant, they were stupid, they were angry, they were sad, they were concerned, they were afraid, whatever reasoning they had. These Pharisees were like, we've got to crucify him. We got to get rid of him. Just like Joseph's brothers. Now we'll read here starting in verse 11. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus said to him, It is as you say. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Then Pilate said to him, Do you not hear how many Do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But he answered him not one word, so that the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feast the governor was accustomed to releasing to the multitude one prisoner whom they wished. And at that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore when they had gathered together, Pilate said to them, Whom do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ? For he knew that they had handed him over because of envy. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitudes that they should ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said to them, Which of the two do you want me to release to you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, What shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? They all said to him, Let him be crucified. Then the governor said, Why? What evil has he done? But they all cried out more, saying, Let him be crucified. Then Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather a tumult was rising. He took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. You see to it. And all the people answered and said, His blood be on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas to them, and when they had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Now again, this is another story that you guys know. We know how this goes, the tragic end of Christ's life. But again, God had a plan here to take this tragic and horrible circumstance and to use it for the good of not just his own son or of his kingdom, but for all people in the world, right? We talked about how important Christ's kingdom is, not only to the world that is suffering in darkness and in failure, but also that it is the first kingdom of all time that's for everyone. Kingdoms have always been about this people or this religion or this nation or this language, but Jesus came to bring the salvation to all people on earth, and that was an incredible threat to the power structure in the world at the time. Not just the Roman government, which was the biggest empire on earth, but to the synagogue of Satan that was controlling and running the world through Rome at the time. It's really no different than today. You see the same thing in today's government, America, the beast mega empire, but under the control of the synagogue of Satan. I mean, the parallels could not be more blatant in this time of history. I think it's really compelling that we're able to see that and understand those parallels and be able to kind of put ourselves into the shoes of how these people must have been living at the time, under this kind of like, it's a Roman empire, but Pilate can't control what's going on. The Pharisees and Sadducees and the Jews of Jerusalem just usurped Rome and said, nah, we'll have him killed. Even though he says, I see no... Even Pilate's own wife was like, don't get involved with that guy. It's not a good plan. Let him go. But he couldn't get out of it because he was in a power structure, a status quo that needed to change. It desperately needed to change. And this time of Christ's life and death and resurrection was the most impactful and powerful example of how badly the status quo needed to change. Because if you have a world of people who the Messiah himself, Jesus Christ, can be delivered to man, a perfect sinless man, performing miracles and healing and giving people food and resurrecting Lazarus from the dead, and people could see this was it. If you could get this guy and his kingdom, everything would be fixed in the world. You'd have no problems. Everyone would be happy. Everything that was a tumult, so to speak, everything that would have caused problems would have been resolved anyway. You'd have a small argument with somebody over something petty and have an orderly system to resolve it. The kingdom could be the end of all strife and trouble. And these people had crab mentality. They thought, no, it's more important that we stay in charge than that things get better under somebody else. It can't be you because I don't approve of you, Messiah. It should be me. It should be who I think the Messiah is. And how often is this the case? A bunch of narcissistic, ignorant, confused, angry, jealous, otherwise stupid people. And they think that the best option is to kill Jesus rather than to embrace his infinite power and kingdom. Wow. Where have I heard that before? And so now the same mentality, right? It ties into the whole. It's the replacement theology, right? Those same people that crucified Jesus to this day, the descendants of the same supremacist faction of Judeo, whatever they are, they have decided that Jesus was never the fulfillment, whether we believe in more than that or not, and there's more to say about that. But the point is that they have continued to hold the line of crab mentality all the way back to the Roman Empire pre-Christ. They want the world the way it was before the way and truth and life existed. They want their totalitarian Babylonian Talmudic system, and they don't want freedom available to every man. In the same way that I discussed how Persia couldn't be conquered now because of the disparity being gone between combatants. In the same way, that's the issue of the world now, is that you used to be hopelessly confused and desperate under the thumb of this totalitarian system in which you could do nothing. And then Jesus came and broke the power structure of the world. Fear not the world. He says, be of good cheer because he has overcome the world. This is the world, the status quo, the system that needs to change. And he has done it. He has overcome it. And he has proven it by raising from the dead, by establishing his kingdom here on the earth. And I think that leads us to another fantastic example because obviously we know that Jesus Christ returned in the first century as he said he would. And that is a huge issue of contention for the modern church. We'll talk more about that as well. But let's talk about another example that I have here. I mean, evidently we know Jesus is king. He came to set us free. And these miserable people would instead free a murderer like Barabbas, whatever his name is, to prevent change. They're crabs trying to drag down the rest of the world. But again, in this case, we saw the case with Jesus was done by God. It was turned around for the good of humanity in the end. It's like whatever God saw in the end, it was good. And so the course of action took place. But this is not a strange phenomenon. This is not irregular. It's 2020 something, whatever. And we're still dealing with this, what history said was 2,000 years ago type people behavior. Okay, so like archaic, stupid people did this, killed Jesus because of how dumb they are. It's been, up to 2,000 years later, and they are still doing this. And here's the example I drummed up recently was a few months back, Paul from Understanding Conspiracy, for those of you guys who don't know, good guy. He put up a video talking about how he had been accosted by this one individual who had called him a crackpot and made videos about him, was out to get him. I mean, I'm sure that's not a new thing. Which time, right? But anyway, so Paul was coming under fire by this other guy who was really angry, really out to get him. And because Paul had been talking about geoengineering via aerosolized dispersion chemtrails, right? And Paul, like any one of us, has had access to this information for a decade or more, where there's proof this is real. I mean, it's not just what you see with your own eyes. Of course, they gaslight you and tell you, no, that's something else. That's a steam. That's a contrail. Yeah, a con trail, coming from the guy named Conman, when a scam trail, they're literally, what's the explanation for that? It's a scam. That is so funny. Anyway, I guess I'm only just now realizing that. But anyway, so Paul posted that video, and he was talking about how this guy was out to get him. But this video was about Paul explaining that had happened a decade ago. And what he was talking about was, look, the government has come out and straight up just said they're doing it. Okay, this was now the time in history where you could probably use better words because it's still pretty algorithmically unfriendly to call stuff chemtrails. But literally, Paul was saying, we're at the point where the government just came out and said, and this was a year ago or so, geoengineering via high-altitude dispersal of aerosolized particulates to reflect the sun to fight global climate change warming or whatever they call it. They always have a new term every generation to make it more scary and to make it so it's you spent the last years combating global warming. Well, we just rebranded climate change. You know what I mean? Then you read all those books about global warming. What's that? I mean, climate change is real, but they keep raising a straw man. You defeat it. They just rebrand into another one. It's so bad. Sheesh. The status quo needs to change. Yikes. But anyway, so Paul came under fire by this guy, right? This guy, for whatever reason, he didn't like that Paul asked this question. He didn't like that people thought there was something going on. And when you really break it down, what's the guy's real problem? He's afraid. He's stupid. He's a coward. He's not very intelligent. Ultimately, because what's the problem? If they're really spraying chemicals, what do you need to realize? You're not just choking and dying immediately. It's not like the moment you realize there's chemtrails, you're like, ah, ah. No. So you could just treat it like anything else, like smoke another cigarette. Well, I ain't got cancer yet. So it's not that. It's not an immediate fear. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden I'm finding out the government's lying to me and I'm afraid. Maybe. But what it actually is it's a decompartmentalization taking place. I can't believe you're right. I have to ignore your evidence because of what the evidence implies. It's not just that, yes, they're spraying stuff, because you see it happening every day and you're just ignorant, and neither does knowing or not knowing actually affect how much poison you're getting. Like, it's a consistent stream of poison whether you know it or not. So that's happening. And the guy's not angry or afraid that he's being poisoned, maybe a little bit, but what he's really afraid of is that he has this paradigm in his mind that's shattering at the reality. If this is true, it means everything he thought about how the government worked and how politics works and how the world works, it's a lie. They just poison you for free. They steal your money and then kill you with it. And like that for a normal person is a horrifying realization. I mean, think about it. Try to wind yourself back to when you realized that the world was run by an evil goblin cult that hates you and wants to kill you and is actively doing so. That is horrifying. No wonder you can't go back to a normal life of tending your garden because it's like, yo, every moment I spend troweling, people are being murdered. It's not chill. So I get it. He wants to call you crazy because it's easier to drag you down. He has to drag you down to lift himself up because the reality is he's a bozo. He doesn't know any of this stuff. He doesn't know anything about chemtrails or anything, because if he did, he'd be right up there with you, Paul. He'd be saying, oh yeah, this is a really dark thing that our government will steal our money and waste all our money to poison us and mess up the environment and to fund endless wars when we should have bridges and schools and shoes on kids' feet. Every normal, sane person coming to the same conclusion that, oh, it's a hopeless system that has to be done away with. Imagine that, right? If we all just saw eye to eye. But no, we've got crabs in the population. So meanwhile, while Paul is trying to reach people about something that is totally true and vindicated in the long run, just like in our Bible story, there is an end. It's not just some sort of a cosmic microcosm where, these people had crab mentality and it worked out. Like, whenever has the crab mentality been working? It hasn't. It doesn't. This is people who are trying to stay stuck in a bad situation. They want you stuck in a bad situation. Maybe if we knew about chemtrails 20 years ago, maybe we could have put a stop to it sooner, before all the damage was done to this generation. You know, there's all these things that spring up later. Radium girls or Agent Orange or the burn pits in Afghanistan, of which my brother is on the list. You know, and you have this reality that, man, they poisoned us and we didn't know till later. We did know. We knew now. And you called us crockpots, you crab son of a bitch. Anyway, I'm sorry. They didn't call us crockpots, by the way. They called us crackpots. Well, not me. I mean, I've been called worse. They did not call us crockpots. Sorry. So the point I'm trying to make is this, that if we didn't mentality, the first person who brought up the chemtrail thing would have been taken very seriously by people who were like, well, what does he have? What does the evidence suggest? Because we're okay with change because we know it's a force we can't fight. When you go surfing, you don't fight the wave, you ride the wave. Change a-comin'. There's a change a-comin'. Let it start in me. Let it start in me. There's a change a-comin'. Let it start in me. Okay? So if you embrace it, you can ride the wave. You can make a change. Believe it. Don't believe that this is just the way things are. That is the most non-kingdom thing I've ever heard. It's the opposite. Know your authority or no authority, okay? Hat tip, Wendy. You know? And so what I'm trying to say is that if you had a culture of people that understood change would come, whenever somebody questioned how things were, you'd say, oh, this might be the change. Is it here? Is it there? What do you have? Oh, it didn't pass the smell test. Thank you for sharing your submission. We just couldn't find enough evidence. Perhaps later when you gather more evidence. Like, if we were actually progressive society, the first guy who heard about chemtrails, it should have been national news. Is this really happening? Are we really dealing with this? Are they actually poisoning us with our own taxpayer dollars? They're complicit. There's some pilot in this country flying that thing. He pulls the lever to poison you. He's complicit. This is reality, man. And all those people who yelled at you, they didn't know any better, okay? You had something they didn't have, and they just said, nope, not listening, you're wrong, because they were dissonant, because they needed to stay stuck in their old ways. They refused to move forward. They want everyone to drown in the crab pot, and it's not fair. It's not fair that the smart people who know that things need to change are being trampled over by a bunch of morons who want us all to die because of how stupid they are. Okay, that's the reality of the situation. And just like with that case with Paul, we were totally vindicated. Anybody who had anything to say about it, it was this unfounded, delusional conspiracy theory peddled by a moron crackpot. So as far as we were all taught, until it turned out just about a year and a half ago that the same government that was responsible for it straight up admitted it. And so I would love, it's like what Paul was saying, it's like what everybody thinks. I would love to grab that guy by the shirt and make him read the document and say, who's the crackpot? Or did you just waste 10 years lying for no reason? You didn't even know. You were just mad that I knew something you didn't know. You were just mad because you liked misery. You wanted me stuck in the misery. You wanted everybody else on earth stuck in the misery because you're miserable, because you're stupid, because you're scared, because you're weak, because you're a coward, because you're a bully, because you're weak. And that's the reality. You're a crab mentality. The poison keeps on flowing for another 2, 3, 4, 5 decades because we're only just now starting to get a national consensus that they really are doing this thing years after they admitted to doing it. Ask a normal person that you come in contact with, did you know that the chemtrails are real and the government is using high altitude chemical and particulate dispersion to alter the climate? They're using tools and technology to alter the climate. It's weather control using chemtrails. Can you believe that? Normal people are like, no. They've admitted it. It's the document is published. And you show them and then they're like, no, I don't know about that. You lazy, weak sack of crap. We can't move forward because you keep crabbing and grabbing our legs and holding us back. I don't want to be a part. I want to cut the rope. Chop the leg off. It grows back if you're a crab. I'm about to be like, we need to cut the leg off and you guys are idiots. Bye. Here's another example you guys all know. The moon landing, NASA, the space rocket program thing. And everybody loves to laugh and yuck it up about how stupid you are because you think the Earth's flat. How could you be so stupid? Like, that's literally how these people act. And at the same time, a multi-billion-dollar rocket program that's designing weapons of mass destruction on your taxpayer dime while liquidating billions of dollars of taxpayer money stolen from you by that old pesky illegal income tax that they just ramshackled into you. They slippery sloped that income tax. Remember that? Yeah, they're using that to pay for a weapons development program that they call outer space while producing a low-budget, crappy CGI and papier-mâché lander. The camera's already there when it gets there. There is no end to how lazy and useless those people are because they never had to be effective. They already have the status quo. There's no reason to change. They just lie to us and we just accept it. And then all of a sudden, a generation of people, beginning in 1969 when the bullshit began, started saying, I don't know if I believe this, man. That rocket looks like it's inflated. That ship is made out of cardboard. That rocket, it's endless examples of how they are factually wrong, and not just because it doesn't hold water, because the organization is a bunch of liars, a bunch of tiny hat, Talmudic, industrial complex liars. So it's not just that their lie is no good, they're also liars with no credibility, and we could move on. We could stop wasting money on rocket weapon development programs. We could stop being liquidated to the tune of $600 billion. We could stop being pillaged if we could just get past these crabs who will not let us lead. They will not let you escape the status quo because they like it. They like being controlled. They like being told what to do. It's easier for their feeble, sheepish brains. And I'm sorry if that sounds cruel, but that is what these people are. They don't have the intelligence. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the passion. They don't have the integrity. They don't have what it takes to be a leader. And so they don't like that you have it. They don't like that you're smarter than them or you know something they don't know. And so instead of learning it and even having the gutlessness to try to pretend like they always knew, you know, when we all get to the end of all this, how many people are going to do what my brother calls Wakefield effect, which is where they all just pretend like they were on your team the whole time? All this blows up, it's all over. And everyone you know, including the naysayers, are like, yeah, man, well, you know, I mean, I just didn't, you know, I didn't want to get involved in the fight. But, you know, I was always on your side. You liars, you shiftless weaklings, you absolute cowards. That's the majority of these people who can see this stuff going on, who deliberately tune it out, who are too scared to come to terms with reality, yet when it comes time to fit in, they'll just lie and say they were with you the whole time. So that you don't know that they were the crabs holding us back. They were the reason we suffered. It's not because of evil people that the world sucks. It's because of useful idiots who support them. Every time there's some sort of megachurch, look at all those people filling the pews. They're the problem, not the liar. If everybody knew the liar was a liar because they had good leaders who were smart and had integrity and had research and had passion and had drive for something bigger and better, who wanted things to be better, if that is who represented you, then you would know who the wolves in sheep's clothing are. There'd never be a mega church full of liars. There'd never be a mega church with a big evil priest construct pillaging everyone's money and molesting everybody. That would never happen. So all of our problems are, again, caused by this continual desire by people to fight the necessary change to get out of all this. And I don't think that there is an end to the number of examples. And you see even in recent news, like, I don't know if you guys know, and I don't want to get too far into it, but there's this character, he's called Gypsy Crusader, and he's like an extreme far-right, like racist internet guy. And there's a lot to unpack about him and his story, and I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I just want to say that we have this guy who's like, he's racist or whatever, okay? Like, that's probably a fair way to describe him if you think that. And maybe he is. I haven't spent a lot of time talking to him or hearing what he really thinks. I just know about him. He's like a pariah. And in the last 10 years, he's really struggled because he can't get a job because he's like racist and famous for being racist. And so what I'm getting at is that he recently got into a fight, like a boxing exhibition fight with a guy called Super Hot Fire. And Super Hot Fire is a black dude, and Gypsy Crusader is like, I don't know, like a Romanian part Jew. I don't know what exactly he is, okay? It's a long story. I'm not here to like promote or condemn anybody. I'm just saying this happened, right? So Gypsy Crusader gets to do an actual exhibition boxing fight with Super Hot Fire. It was a really cool fight, you know, to anybody who actually have a video. There's a video of it. Why not? Well, just because we're here. This is the internet. So here's that.
He's so tired. He's done. Go for your ancestors. Do it for your ancestors. 30 seconds. Oh my God. What a fight.
Anyway, there's more to it than that, but the long story short is that these guys have real internet beef. You know, this black guy hates Gypsy Crusader because he's racist and evil, and Gypsy Crusader doesn't like this guy because he thinks he's just a ignorant black guy. And there's like this, like, we hate each other based on race, and this is just an old tale as old as time, race war, a division against each other based on something that no one can even change. That is, again, as I'll reiterate again, the antithesis of the kingdom. Because in God's kingdom, there's black and white people and Romanians and Indians and whatever. You know what I mean? It's not racially exclusive, okay? Like, you know, newsflash to the Jews, that the replacement theology is actually the fulfillment theology, and Christ is king, and every knee will bow and confess, and if you don't, you know where you're going. So anyway, but what I want to say about this, I'll tell you about why this is relevant, okay? Because for the longest time, somebody like Gypsy Crusader would be seen as a racist pariah and is not allowed to speak. We don't want to hear what you say because you're evil, you're hateful, and you're wrong, okay? And so for the longest time, anything that any guy like him had to say was not being heard. No one wanted to listen. Then this fight happens, him and this other guy, and look, this is the most caveman thing, but that's what it takes when you're in the stone age of social development and social consciousness. We're like, our society is rotten to the core, and so you basically have to build a new one, even if this one's still rotting and sitting there. And so you have to get back to some caveman style stuff. So Gypsy's got his worldview. Super Hot's got his worldview. They're both probably wrong because on one hand, you've got all these weird modified statistics designed that are racist, that are designed to perhaps protect or deter or kneecap one racial group in favor of another. And then you've got other people who've been taught straight up lies about other racial groups in order to like inflame them against the other one. And it's this like systemic, self-fulfilling prophecy where everybody is racist and doesn't realize it. They think the only racist is like an 1800s guy cracking a whip on a slave plantation, not realizing that all day on Facebook there's all these people who aren't white talking about white people this, white people that, all this anti-white hatred, and they don't realize they're racist too. You're just as bad as the worst Hitler you can think of. You are shit. And so these people, like, here's the example, right? So finally, we're getting somewhere. We're finally moving somewhere as a culture that instead of just refusing to listen and refusing to hear each other out, now we're beginning some caveman stuff. Ugg and Glug over here have decided that they're no longer going to hide and pretend each other doesn't exist, make up stories about each other. No, they're going to fight. They're going to find out which one's tougher. All right, so it's very caveman. We're going to beat each other down and figure out which guy's more tough. Because we can't have a real conversation yet. We're not there yet. Well, we have to club each other first and then find out who's more tough. But you know where this is going, right? We had no conversation. We had no exhibition. We had no, look, these two guys, for whatever reason, whatever they hate each other, they're beef, they're racist, whatever. They decided to put aside all the belligerence, all the idiocracy, and to say, well, let's meet in the ring. We'll wear the right gloves. We'll wear the right shoes. We'll be on the same court. We'll have the same rules. We'll have the same judges. We'll have the same arena. We're going to make a standard for everyone that's uniform. It doesn't matter if he's white or black or racist or wrong or right. We're just going to uniformly set the stage the same. Wow. Because we have not been able to do that. We've never been able to do that. And now all of a sudden, here we are. We're going to say, I don't care if you're a racist. I'll beat your ass in the ring. And then we find out who the tough guy is in the ring. That doesn't prove who's right geopolitically, but it's a start. Now we know who's more tough. What can we figure out next? Who's more loving? Who's more creative? Who's a better team player? Who's better at crossing racial lines? Who is the better man? And we can start making those be the contests that we have instead of petty squabbling, yelling obscenities at each other and never getting to the truth. Because the reality of the world is kind of racist, and if we don't understand that, we'll never fix it. How do you go from the old order of things to the new kingdom? You have to get past all the crap. You have to crush the crabs that are holding you back. So what's one of the biggest crabs in the world right now? Is the racism that people will not let go of. And when I see people starting to let go, it's not that they want to. They're losing their grip. They can't keep you quiet anymore. They can't tell you you're racist and that works to shut you up. Some people don't care. Some people are proud to be. What are you going to do about that? Prove who's the bigger man. Prove who's right on the merit of what you believe. You know, say what you want to say about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I could say a lot. Because you could call him a womanizer and a false teacher, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a liar, a fraud, a fed, a guy who plagiarized all his college essays. You might be right about that. I'm not here to tell you whether you're right, whether you're wrong or right about that. But what I can tell you is the message that Dr. Martin Luther King preached until his dying day was that people should be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And so if a guy has hateful or loving things to say, it doesn't matter if he's black or white or Hispanic or Asian or Indian or whatever race or gender that you are. We want to talk about the merit of what really matters. We want an even playing field for everybody because that is the righteous way. The order, the righteousness is not concerned with what race you are. It cares about how good you are in the eyes of God. How good of a faithful servant are you? That's what righteousness is. How reliable to God's plan are you? And if you're reliable to God's plan, if you're committed to the kingdom, then that's what makes you righteous. Your success in God's plan for your life, your adherence to what God commands you to do, that's what makes you righteousness. Being right with God is righteousness. And so these guys, there's nothing righteous about two goons beating the crap out of each other. But I will say that it's important that people realize that this is the beginning of a dialogue that we're not having. If there is truth to what Gypsy says about crime statistics, instead of being racist and saying, well, the rules are different for that group, that's racist. We're all the same. We're equal. So the rules apply equally, just like they do in the ring. And we say, okay, well, what about the statistic? Is there a group that is statistically more guilty of one thing than another? Perhaps there is. Can we be mature enough to address the statistic and then be loving and righteous and say, well, how do we fix it instead of ignoring it? How can we be adults and say, oh, this is a problem among these people? How do we fix it? Instead of trying to pretend it doesn't exist because of some racist delusion that one group is okay to do that stuff. It's okay that one group is an ethnic supremacist faction and that everyone beneath them is a goy. And that, you know what I mean? Like, why is it okay if anyone does it? It's a regressive crab mentality. Well, we're mad because we perceive that in the past, white people enslaved our ancestors. Not these white people and not me, but old times white people enslaved old times black people. And so I hate Whitey for everything he did. You know what I mean? It's like, is that the solution? Some people had the same skin color might have done something that had the same skin color as me, so I'm the bad guy. Just how is that any different than, well, every time I see a mugshot on Fox News, they're black, so all black people are criminals then? How is that any different? It's the same damn thing. And so you can't get past it because crabs are trying to hold you back. And I can't even begin to tell you with this gypsy fight thing, this I didn't even watch it. I don't even care. I'm just looking at the big picture, 30,000 feet. We're moving now. And that's what terrifies these crabs the most. Because now, all of a sudden, Gypsy's allowed to fight in a ring. All of a sudden, Super Hot Fire, even though he's maybe the victim of Gypsy's racist tirade about his cranial capacity, now all of a sudden, they're meeting on same equal terms. That's the least racist thing I've seen yet. That the racist guy who dresses up like the Joker and that black guy who probably hates Whitey, and they're fighting and they're fucking, I'm sorry, they have honor. They have the decency to meet on the level playing field. That is progress. And so the people who want to say, you should never have let him in the arena, or you should never have touched gloves with that scumbag or that criminal, or whatever language that you want to use to disparage someone else because of what they look like, which is something they can't even have any control over at all. You want to be that way. You're regressive. You're a racist. You're a crab. You're trying to hold us back from moving forward to a kingdom where we beat the crap out of each other for fun without a distinction of who's what race. We fight on the same terms. We argue on the same terms. We get into college with the same terms. Because in just the same way that you could point at 400 years of American slavery and say, look at how evil white people are, you could also say, look at how evil the people are today that think we need to have special policies like affirmative action because black people aren't smart enough to get into college. They don't know how to use the internet. Like the kind of crap, Gavin Newsom, yeah, I'm like you guys. I have a low SAT score. Just what? Because they're black, they're stupid? Why are these people being allowed to actuate? Why are they being allowed to operate as our leaders? Whether you're Gavin Newsom or these news talking heads and the things they do and say that prove that they judge everybody by what they look like, while simultaneously telling us that we're evil if we mention something about a statistic that what they look like is secondary to what they've done. If I see a crime statistic that says an unimaginable number of murders, the primary issue is not the color, it's the murder. This is a disgrace. Martin Luther King's grave is being pissed on by DE&I and social justice warriors and by the continued racism of the modern age. Everybody's guilty of it. And if you ever thought that Martin Luther King's message about judging people by the content of their character had any validity at all, you have to know that he plagiarized it from the King of Kings, whose message it was originally. That's something he must be good at, is plagiarizing stuff. And hear me out. If the message of Jesus Christ and of his apostles and of his kingdom is that we're all in it together, we're all valuable together, then our competition can then become about how well we can do together. How much can we build together? There's this example, it's called designed obsolescence. You guys know about this, but it's like, I watched a video about this. They used to have a flashlight. Some of you guys might remember this. And it's like a transparent flashlight, and the transparent part of the shell really means nothing, but it has electromagnets in it. And when you shake it, for lack of a better animation, when you shake it, it charges the battery. It's like electromagnetic charge. And it basically just lasts forever. You give it a few shakes and it runs for like 10 minutes. They're pretty cool. I'm sure some of you guys have them. But they discontinued them. They don't make them anymore. They're really hard to find. And then the same goes about how in the mid-2000s, a company invented a steel-braided phone charger cable, just like what you might see on like an automotive brake line or some kind of a high-pressure line. And it's designed to last 30 years outside under heat and cold and pressure. And so it's really good. It's a really good design. And they had phone cables that were metal, like they were mesh metal. And, you could look it up and then the mesh would peel apart and start creating splinters and hazards. And I don't know if any of that's ever been true. But what I do know is that the cables were extremely effective. And the problem is, if you sell somebody a metal phone charger cable and it never breaks, they don't need to buy another one. I mean, maybe they want a second one, or maybe they need one for the kid, or, there's reasons you'd buy one additionally, but you don't buy a replacement when you have something that lasts forever. And so the capitalism and the corporate America of the modern status quo in condition here knows that you can't make money by selling somebody something once. You need to sell it to them multiple times. And so over the course of the last 30 years that I've been alive, I've watched, they peaked like 1999. I mean, like I'm driving, I just got the alignment done on Bamalam the other day, and I drove it for the first time, like not whacked out. And it was the most beautiful and smooth and amazing thing of all time. That was year 2000, dude. That's it. It doesn't get better than that. Now we design cars with like a crappy plastic oil pan and with like a belt inside the engine oil so it corrodes and turns into crap, and the little bits of the belt go into the engine and destroy the engine. They designed it like that now. It didn't used to be like that. You used to have a truck and it just lasted 500,000 miles with minimal work. You do oil change and it was half the price. And nowadays the truck is $100,000 and within 3,000 miles, engine out, and it's at the dealership for 2 months. Don't tell me that that's an accident. It's because they can't keep selling you trucks if they're really good. And this is why it's such the antithesis of the kingdom. It is a crab mentality like never before. Because instead of solving problems, we're making problems in order to make money, instead of solving problems to solve them. Because we have a cult of evil people running everything. The expectations and standards are not uniform, nor are they high enough for what we expect, what we demand as people. Because we all live in this fallen kingdom and think we deserve to pay $100,000 for a hunk of crap. That's literally what this comes down to. Because if we knew better, we'd say, everyone would agree, you're not selling that truck, Ford, because it's too much money and it's a piece of shit. Okay, so if you want to survive, you need to build a forever truck again, like you used to know how to do 30 years ago. Okay, we're not stupid. There's people with it. My brother got a 1991 Ford truck that was his first car, and it's still good. There's a 1990, my dad's driving my grandpa's 1991 Chevy truck. Same truck. It's like it doesn't even, we changed the oil recently and it turns out it's been leaking. So it had like that much tiny like black sludge of no oil in it. You can't do that with a modern car. If you have 2 ounces of black sludge for engine oil, your car blows up. Then old truck from 1991, I'm gonna put something in there. It just keeps going, And that is because they were building it up for a while and now they're building it down. They're deconstructing because they're crabs. They don't want us to advance beyond pickups. They want you stuck in a broken truck, not levitating on some sort of platform. You see what I'm saying? If people were real, if they were part of the solution, Ford would have figured out how to build a truck that lasts forever, that's so good that by the time everyone got one, we don't need to build trucks anymore. There's more than enough trucks for people, and now we're on to the next thing. Problem solved. Destination kingdom. You know what I'm saying? And this breaks down into everything. Mad Pax says cars were perfected in 1965 to 68. I would say 1963 Thunderbird. That's like my other dream car. Anyway, obviously, guys, what we know is true is that they deliberately design things poorly because they don't want them to last. And that's part of the rotten status quo we live in now. The same thing I say we need to change. We have to figure out how to change it. And that means we have to come together and rise to a higher occasion. In the same way that I say it's a standard for everybody. It's not race-based or language or whatever. We also have to think about it transcending America. You know, America is like an old truck that needs a restoration. We're over here talking about pickups. I think there's no better example. America is something that was built really good at its beginning, regardless of what you believe about the factory and the founders, right? The truck was solid. It lasted all the way till now. It built lives and futures for millions of people over the last several hundred years. And people had opportunities that they never had anywhere else in history. That is true. In this country, people were able to go build farms and houses and explore the world and write books and make movies and all the amazing things that America has produced in the time it existed. America is like a good old truck. But America is rusty and crusted and broken down. It's not working. It's not working the way it used to. It's almost unrecognizable. It's sad. You look at pictures of America when it rolled off the factory floor, and you see this beautiful finished project. You see the World's Fair and stuff, and you see all those pictures of the old world, and you're like, man, America used to be outstanding. We used to have beautiful regal buildings and beautiful little trolleys that had little leather bench seats with there was fine cutlery and stuff on the train. America used to be a beautiful place. And it's eroded and gone to shit. And the reality is, if you want to fix something, you got to get to the bottom of what's wrong. You got to get to the root of the rust. America, it's a rotten old truck. And so we have to make decisions. We have to be adults about it and be responsible and say, this truck's not salvageable. So we need to figure out what happens when we part it out. What parts are good enough to keep? What parts do we need to take apart and try to salvage them, restore them? What parts need to get thrown away because they're beyond saving? And what do we need to replace entirely? And when you look at the big picture, you realize the solution to the failed America is not another America. We need something better. We need to go beyond something that just fails because it's old and tired. We need to build something that's ever new and refreshing. We need a Ford that really wants to build the best truck, not make the most bucks. And how do we get there? We need a higher standard. In the same way that we can put a racist and a black guy together in an arena and they'll both play by the boxing rules and everyone will follow the decorum of the arena. Yeah, it's caveman. They're clubbing each other. But next thing you know, it's a debate stage with decorum. Next thing you know, it's a contest for who can show the most love to their brother. That is progress. And people who are trying to prevent this from happening are crabs. And then you look at all the other problems in the world. I could talk till I'm blue in the face about the semantics of the problems of our world, right? I wish I didn't use so much profanity. I'm working on it. I haven't been back in 2 weeks. My filter is slipping. The reality of it is that we could fix all the world's problems if we had a new status quo, if we had the change that we so desperately need. You know, it's funny, when change comes that's inauthentic, you'll notice that everybody likes it, right? When in 2008, Barack Obama comes to be the president. 2007, 2008, Barack Obama is becoming president. He's offering change. Remember, that was his whole catchphrase in that first campaign. It was all about change. And everybody thought, he's going to come and he's going to get me free house and I'm going to get extra welfare. And America's just going to be so good with Obama. Simply because he's black, that'll make everything better. And of course, we should have been smart enough to know. Anybody who fell for that, you were racist. You voted for a guy because he was black. You thought, well, because he's black, somehow that'll be different. Because every other guy was old and white. This guy's old and black. Well, that'll fix it. His skin's a different color, therefore that is a huge teller about what he is. And honestly, we don't want to get into that, but Barack Obama was no different than anything else. He was a non-citizen. He was a foreign agent. He was a billionaire elite. He was one of these money grubber. And, they talk about, he had this much, net worth, and then he had even more. It's like he's always had money. He's always had access to hanging out at the college and never really going, yet still getting the degree. I mean, this guy was a scum. He's no different than George Bush. He's no different than Bill Clinton. He's no different than any of them. And so when change came, everybody liked him. Big old inauguration party. Let's go. And the reason why people embraced it is because it wasn't change. If it had really been about change, people would have been all upset. The biggest protest that anybody had about Barack Obama was based also in racism. Well, he's black. He's bad for the country. Believe it or not. He's good for the country because he's black. He's bad for the country because he's black. Both sides racist. We wonder why we're not getting anywhere. That's so funny. But it continued. We got 8 years of Obama, more wars, more spending, higher national debt. It's hiking up the whole time. All right, we were at 8, and then we're at 10, then we're at 15, 20, 30, 40 trillion. Keep them coming. Donald Trump shows up in 2016, and all of a sudden he's like, we need something else. The system as we know it, frankly, has failed, and we're going to need to do something different. And so everybody's like, oh, okay, that guy. And they're like, Trump, Trump, Trump. And I fell for it. Wow, believe it or not, another imperfect sinner, another fool in a world of sheep. You know, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. How about a government that takes care of us? How about our money not going to endless wars? You know, he said a lot of things. That's how they get you. Barack Obama said a lot of things, but he was just like everyone else. You know what, Trump? He's just like everybody else. Wow. Am I smart for observing the obvious? No. But look, we fell for it because he was the same, not because he was different. We believed in him because we were trained to. Well, he'll save us because he's a big rich guy and he has power and he's different than us. He's one of those guys. That means he could fix it because he's like them and can do what they can do, as we're all like over here lowering ourselves to the slaves they've trained us all to be. Believing that if we put our faith behind some guy in a suit, that somehow the insanity will break and this time it'll work. Let's just trust another pro-Israel. Let's trust another pro-Muslim. Let's trust another anything but Jesus. Any guy but Jesus. Any faith but Jesus. Any rock but the rock. And I don't mean Dwayne. And so then you wonder why America sucks. And yet, even though America sucks, everyone else wants to come over here, right? Endless immigration, whether it's illegal immigration or they're trying to ship people in, it's H-1 visas, whatever the hell. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is these people want to come here because it's better here than it is over there. Okay, no one can deny that, but that's not an argument. This shithole is slightly less shitty than that shithole, so people know if they come here, they'll have less shit on their plate. See, that's not the answer. And the answer is not round them up and send them back where they came. But you know what's better? What if you could just convince everybody to stay home? What if their homeland was good too? What if instead of just America being the only thing that people care about, what if we started raising the standard to a uniform standard? One that wasn't just for me because I'm white and I live here. How about one that's for everybody? How about we say, why can't India be a nice place? Why can't make the world great again? You know, I had an episode where I talked about this, make Earth great again. And it's like my understanding of our responsibility being bigger than the United States of America. And I really want to reach the world to get them to understand this because this is the only faction that's for everyone. It's the only one. Everyone else is out to get you. If you're black, if you're white, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're American, if you're from a foreign country, it doesn't matter. There's a group out to get you because of who you are. There's only one group that's out to save you. There's only one group that's out to love you. There's only one group that's out to make the world a better place for everybody, not just this group or that group, not just some select chosen few, and everyone else can get the shaft. There's only one faction on earth that believes that. Now, I guess that's what CDM is, right? Like, CDM is that. I never thought it would come down to the day that I was sitting here thinking I scanned through all of it. I've scanned my whole life hoping that somebody else would raise the banner that says this banner is for everybody, not just to lift us all up, but to hold us all to account for a higher standard of living. What Martin Luther King preached, I mean. What Jesus Christ meant, I mean. When Jesus Christ says, take up your cross daily and follow after me, he doesn't just mean get your life on track and be a Christian. He says fix the world and make it a better place. That's who you are. You're a restorer. You're a builder. You're a thinker. You're a leader. You're not a crab. You're not a loser. You're not someone who accepts slavery and fealty to a racist faction that controls the whole world. You don't accept that they have authority over you. You understand you come from a place that's higher than this, that's better than this, and that everybody in the world could have a better and a higher life. There's no guy on earth, Donald Trump or Barack Obama, that can come out on the debate stage and say, I could promise you, the American people, the people of the world, the poor people, the struggling masses, I could promise you a better life. As far as for the elites, I can't promise them that. I can't promise these billionaire thieves that they're going to have a good future. I couldn't guarantee that. Because of all the crimes and misery this system has created, I can't trust you if you're rich. And so for you, I don't know what I'd say to you except for that hopefully you find it in your heart to give away all the things you have as God commanded the rich young ruler so that you can enter the kingdom too. So you're not drugged down by all your material shit so that it's not the crabs dragging you down into the pot, your materialism and your desire to have money and stuff. Okay, but there should be a basic standard of living for everybody in the world. And if we could ascend some of the nonsense that everyone keeps trying to drag us back into, we finally realize the world's in turmoil and needs help, and people's response is some sort of America first nationalism? Pathetic. America destroyed the world. America will not fix the world. They ain't rebuilding that old truck. It's time for a hovercraft. It's time for a floating palace. It's time for Vimana action, okay? We're not out here going to continue to be insane and repeat the same mistakes and hoping to get a different outcome. We're too smart for that now. And so I don't care if you call me a crackpot or a freak or whatever, a racist. I don't even care. I don't care. Because the fact of the matter is I'm one of the only people aside from you guys. You guys are the only other people I can think of who are driven to see the world change. Not just so that my life can be better or yours, but so that everyone can be, even the people who don't like us. And no one else is willing to do that for anyone else. There's no, whether it's Gypsy Crusader or Super Hot, neither one of those guys, as honest as they are, with something to prove, willing to meet on that fight stage and battle it out, as honest as they are in that, they're still not the kind of people who would give their shirt to the other guy. They're not the kind of person who would actually be there for the other, because they're not ready yet. They're not there yet. They need a better reason to do it other than just good sportsmanship. Better than just caveman solve problem with club. We need to be the kind of people who are like intellectual, truly scientific, truly data-driven, so that we can transcend all this crab mentality nonsense. Like, we can't solve the crime problem in America because we have to kid glove the people with 20 repeat felonies on their record. And then we don't have the courage to deal with the judges who keep releasing them. It's an endless example. Failure, failure, failure. And the only reason that happens is because the crab mentality persists. People want you stuck in the old way. And I guess to conclude tonight, I would say that again, I will reiterate, I don't think a faction exists, and prove me wrong. I'll accept it. I would rather somebody else be the one who's like that guy. Because it'd be easier for me to just get stoned and play video games and do whatever I want. But the world needs to change. And so I've been given this task. I'm here. You count me in. I recently, and this is kind of where I'll leave it off, I guess. I recently had somebody who I guess I thought was kind of my friend, but he really wasn't. And I guess he kind of seemed like he was. I don't know. It's hard to read people these days. People are so weird and fickle. But I had this one guy, and he was like a buddy of mine, and we were kind of tight. And then he kind of started to drift away, and I don't know why. I mean, I know I'm crazy and caustic, so I get it if you don't like me. It's like, you get what you get in this circumstance. Beggars can't be choosers, right? But my friend here disagreed with my notion that not only are we empowered by the kingdom, but called by the kingdom to rise to a higher level for ourselves and for everyone else. And that means the standard that we're held by and the quality of life we all deserve. I said that. I've said that this whole time. I believe in Destination Kingdom, and I believe it should be on our way today. We're not waiting to leave for the road trip. It's time to get started. Let's get going to the kingdom. And even if that means we only get one street paved gold before we're all dead, at least we planted seeds for trees that we'll never sit under the shade of the branches of. That's what it means to be a hero. That's what it means to be a kingdom citizen. It means you give up your life hoping it makes other people's lives better. That's what love is. So we work all our lives. Maybe we die. We never see a shred of the kingdom, but we better work all our lives to get there because we owe the world that. We owe the Lord that. We owe our friends, neighbors, our enemies that. That's what it means. And I had one of these people, and he would come onto his show the night after my show and say stuff like, "You can't change the world." And he would say stuff like that, basically I'm over here trying to hype you up to change the world, Destination Kingdom, and then tomorrow, this guy's naysaying and saying it's not gonna work, you can't do it. And you know what? He's not around anymore. So what's the difference? Me telling you we can do it, and I'm still here. And then these other people who say you can't, and where are they now? Where's your next live stream? You ain't shit, because you're a quitter. So don't listen to quitters who tell you to quit. Because all they want to do is drag you down in the crab pot. They want you to be miserable like them, hopeless like them, and have no authority like them. And this transcends just the people in our group who aren't who they say they are. It goes even farther because you look at the church at large. Remember when all of you read the Bible and really listened to what it said and you realized, holy crap, Jesus told us he was going to come back in the first century. And this community really knows this. This is kind of the main point, right? This is the crux of it all. This is what inspired the whole thing tonight. The church had an opportunity to embrace the reality that Jesus Christ tells a radical truth that's bigger, bolder, and better than any of the lies history has told us in this fake, rotten status quo. And Jesus Christ told us he was coming back to build this kingdom for 1,000 years. And we believed it for one reason or another, because we read it, because we saw it in history, in architecture, in archaeology. We read about it in Tacitus and Josephus. We learned that the first century was very different than what we thought it was, and we realized it was true, and all we wanted was to give people access to that power of freedom and truth that says that God didn't just let his son die and disappear into the annals of history, but that he rose again, and he returned as he said he would, and he ruled and reigned for 1,000 years. And you know what? All of these people in the church, they were scared of that. They were afraid, they were ignorant, they were stupid, they were angry, they were threatened, they were dissonant, and they all turned on you and said you were crazy and you were an apostate and you were a heathen because you didn't stick with the generic dispensationalist futurism that is pervasive and widespread in the modern evangelical world. And this pervasive futurism that is at the same time the group of people who tells you you're wrong because if history is a lie, you're a fearmonger, you're trying to say the world's run by Satan, you're trying to give power to the devil, you're this, that, and the other thing. All their excuses for why they wouldn't even look at the evidence or the research. Every excuse possible to keep dragging you down into the what? Something better? That the rapture is going to be tomorrow and everyone will die but us good chosen people, us special religious elite. The select class that's not you? Where have I heard that before? So is there such a thing? Like, who's the worst offender? The racists who won't let us get past racism? The people who want our economy to be unfair for people to not be able to afford to live? They want to sell you 20 freaking phone charger cables instead of one? Is it the church who refuses to let us move towards the kingdom because we have to wait for something to happen, wait for the rapture, wait for the tribulation, and they're wrong. They are wrong. So if I'm right and the tribulation already happened, which it did, and I want to move forward, and they say, no, we're not moving forward, what are you doing? Crab mentality. You're trying to keep us all in the past. You're trying to keep us all paralyzed and void of the kingdom in our lives. If destination kingdom lies ahead and you want us stuck here, you want us destination roadside, you want us destination breakdown, and I won't tolerate it. So if you're part of the church and you're some kind of futurist and you're addicted to failure and your do-nothing doctrine and a world of turmoil in which a multi-billion-dollar international church body has done nothing to save the world, then I will not be told by those crabs that I'm going to sit here and wait. We are going to fix the world together because we were given a spirit of power and authority and love, and it is our destiny that we will build the kingdom in this life or the next. And don't expect me to be any different when I get there. I'll be as zealot then as I am now. Don't think that it's going to take the gate to change my mind. I'm already there. So when you hear naysayers from the church, from Space Camp, from the government, from Epstein, from Trump, Barack, red, blue, any of these idiots and their nonsense about how they're going to try to keep us in a fight from nation to nation, brother to brother, language to language, race to race, religion to religion, those days will be in the past. We will see the end of the old order of things, and we will see a new kingdom on earth just as it is in heaven. It is prophecy, and you will live to see it, as God is my witness. And I'm honored to be able to be here with you guys to see it happen. All right. So let's not be crabs. Let us seek what is coming. Let us embrace the change that lies ahead. Let us be prepared to have our minds changed as it is what it means to repent, to change the way you think, and understand that I don't know who else is going to rise but you and me, and so we must be the ones that do it. People become more brave when they see other people charging the enemy head first. So let me be that guy. I didn't want to be. I don't like it very much, but I do like you guys, and I do believe in this. So if I have to be the guy, I will debate everyone. I will fight everyone. I'll fight the whole world alone if I have to, but I'm blessed that I don't have to, because the kingdom is big and bold and beautiful and diverse. The only real diversity that there is. Amazing. Well, I love you guys. I don't know what else to say. Good to be back after 2 weeks. Hope I didn't get too far. I know I dropped the F-bomb. My apologies, guys. Hope you weren't playing that in front of your kids. Y'all are the best. Thank you guys so much again for being here for level 85 of the Main Character Podcast, made possible by the Cult of Khan. That's you guys. I'm Khan Man, and thank you for being here. Tonight's episode was, as always, powered by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. Destination Kingdom. All right, I love you guys. I'll see y'all on Sunday. Take it easy.
What you think? Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is. I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is my profession. I'm recklessly disrespecting what you expect and investing in my discretion, teaching the lessons, impressions to keep you guessing what I do next, man.
Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison. He will go forth to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the final battle, an army whose number is as the sand of the sea.
It's amazing the affirmations that come my way when I fake it until I make it. The truth is waiting, complacent organizations. They say I'm racist, they hate and they making payments on my vacation. I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is. I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is my profession. I'm recklessly disrespecting what you expect and investing in my discretion, teaching the lessons, impressions to keep you guessing what I do next, man. I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is. I hold the secrets